Hello, I'm Jonasz Rewiński and you're watching Break the Fake. They make them, we break them, and tell you everything you need to know. Recently, in another speech resembling a political gymnastics competition, Russian State Duma Speaker Vyacheslav Volodin solemnly declared as follows: "The participants in the special military operation are the best part of our society."
Участники специальной военной операции – люди, которые приняли решение защищать страну. Такая возможность есть у всех. Это выбор. Лучшая часть нашего общества, наши солдаты и офицеры. Они могут совершать поступки, жертвуя собой, подвергая рискам свою жизнь во имя страны, ее граждан. И, конечно, это особые люди. Поэтому, когда мы говорим о новой элите, те, кто сегодня защищает нас, ее часть, им поклон, слова благодарности. И все мы перед ними в долгу. Надо сделать все, чтобы они ни в чем не нуждались, так же, как и их семьи.
According to Volodin's logic, to join the ranks of the best, all you need to do is sign an enlistment contract, take a photo with one of those flags with the letter Z on them, the symbol of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, in case anyone forgot, and, here is the important part, make sure you don't ask any difficult questions. For example, why is Russia at war in the first place? It's also a good idea to keep quiet when Russian missiles hit schools, hospitals and maternity wards in Ukraine, because Russians don't hit civilians. I suppose all those buildings somehow collapsed on their own. Seismic activity in Ukraine? Last time I checked, it was Kamchatka that had earthquakes. Maybe that's just NATO propaganda as well. But anyway, what does the best part of Russian society actually look like, you may ask? Well, if you look closely, the image isn't that pretty. It tells the story of thousands of mobilized troops and contract soldiers who don't just face the horrors of the front line, thanks to their dictator and their own commanding officers in most cases, they also struggle to reintegrate into normal life, if you can call it that, when they get home. They're often left without proper assistance, rehabilitation, or even recognition. Let's take a look at some real-life examples. Now, the CCTV footage you're about to see shows a Russian soldier who's just returned from the front line in Ukraine going through what looks like a mental breakdown in a store. What caused his very public meltdown, you may ask? Well, our guess is untreated PTSD. In his mind, he's the protector of his people, warding off drone attacks, and yet nobody cares. Of course, if Putin hadn't attacked Ukraine in the first place, there would be no drones to shoot down. But let's focus on the unfiltered emotions for a moment. Seems like the best part of Russian society and the rest of Russian society simply don't get along.
Нихуя ты не делал, потому что я тебя парень защищаю, чтобы а тебя и вернули долетели. Ты не благодарен. Тебе похуй, а мне нет. Мой брат сейчас лежит без ноги, боксает. Без ноги. Ты понимаешь, что это такое? Ты не понимаешь, потому что ты тупая, и ты тупая, и ты тупая, а ты молчишь меня.
Tears of rage, tears of anger, but believe me, it could have been worse. Just recently, the Russian village of Kurkino was rocked by an explosion. No, not a drone strike, not a random person lighting a cigarette at a munitions depot either. A grenade. But how did that grenade get there, you may ask? Well, simple. A 32-year-old soldier, Alexei Kurvyakov, brought it home from the war. Kurvyakov had previously been convicted several times for extortion, intentional infliction of grievous bodily harm, and other crimes. On the eve of his own birthday, Kurvyakov was drinking with his friends. At some point, he and his buddies got into an argument. Kurvyakov pulled out a grenade and, well, you know what happened next. The blast killed 3 people on the spot, and one of the partygoers died on his way to the hospital. And if you think this is an isolated case, well, think again. Violent crime in Russia is at a 15-year high, with statistics showing a more than 10% increase compared to last year, and over 32% compared to 2019. It's the boomerang effect of the war, and in many unfortunate cases, the emphasis here is on boom. Russia's government and state-controlled media often talk about the war in Ukraine as a struggle for historical justice and defending the homeland. But the harsh truth behind all that lofty language is anything but glorious. Institutional support is insufficient. Mental health programs are either non-existent or woefully inadequate. And what they call public health care is too often limited to televised medal ceremonies and slogans. When the microphones are turned off, however, another life begins, one without a safety net, with denial of pain and an imposed duty to remain silent. The cases we showed you are not unique. They reflect the cracks in the monolithic image that is broadcast to Russian citizens on television. Hidden behind all the patriotic slogans and nationalist fanfare are the broken lives, trauma, disappointment, and silent rage of people who believed in the state but ended up forgotten. War is always traumatic, and it doesn't end when the fighting stops. It lives on in the men who have returned from the battlefield, and in a society that doesn't know how to deal with the trauma they bring home with them. In Russia, all this trauma is effectively a taboo subject. Acknowledging it would mean destroying the convenient myth of a sacred struggle. But then some myths are already broken. Anyone still remember Kiev in 3 days? Or the world's second best army? Yeah. In Yekaterinburg, 24-year-old Timofey Altushkin, son of the Forbes billionaire and founder of Russian copper company Igor Altushkin, got married. You're probably thinking, are you guys doing a gossip column all of a sudden? But bear with me, it's definitely gonna be worth it. So, the couple's wedding was a lavish affair. At least $1.2 million was spent on all the bells and whistles. Part of this sum went to fees for guest artists, including American rapper Tyga. It is reported that Tyga requested a whopping $800,000 for his performance, $500,000 for the show itself, and another $300,000 for the flight. He arrived in Yekaterinburg from Spain and stayed at one of the city's top hotels, the Hyatt. Immediately after the wedding, he headed to Moscow, where he had a concert scheduled. Tyga has performed 3 concerts in Russia since May 2025, actually. And obviously, he isn't bothered by the fact that the country has unleashed a war in Ukraine that kills innocent people every day. Tyga, Tyga, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful love of Russian rubles? We appreciate that most artists still shun Russia due to its aggressive policies. Many of them, like Imagine Dragons, for example, even openly support Ukraine's struggle for freedom, with flags on the stage and all that. Great stuff. Against this backdrop, Tyga's money grab looks particularly unimpressive. But then, selling out to dictators usually ends up being the ultimate cringe. Don't believe me? Just ask Steven Seagal. And with this, we conclude this edition of Break the Fake. Please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news and updates.